These blasphemous texts are the Necronomicon. It was written by the mad Arab al-Hazrad himself and was found in the possession of a desert-dwelling Sufi tribe in Upper Egypt. It contains forbidden knowledge and unholy incantations. You have been warned. The testimony of the mad Arab. This is the testimony of all that I have seen and all that I have learned in those years that I have possessed the 3 seals of Masshu. I have seen 1,001 moons, and surely this is enough for the span of a man's life, though it is said the prophets lived much longer. I am weak and ill, and bear a great tiredness and exhaustion, and a sigh hangs in my breast like a dark lantern. I am old. The wolves carry my name in their midnight speeches, and that quiet, subtle voice is summoning me from afar, and a voice much closer will shout into my ear with unholy impatience. The weight of my soul will decide its final resting place. Before that time, I must put down here all that I can concerning the horrors that stalk without, and which lie in wait at the door of every man, for this is the ancient arcana that has been handed down of old, but which has been forgotten by all but a few men, the worshippers of the ancient ones. May their names be blotted out. And if I do not finish this task, take what is here and discover the rest, for time is short, and mankind does not know nor understand the evil that awaits it, from every side, from every gate, from every broken barrier, from every mindless acolyte at the altars of madness. For this is the book of the dead, the book of the black earth, that I have written down at the peril of my life, exactly as I received it, on the plains of the Ijiji, the cruel celestial spirits from beyond the wanderers of the wastes. Let all who read this book be warned thereby that the habitations of men are seen and surveyed by that ancient race of gods and demons from a time before time, and that they seek revenge for that forgotten battle that took place somewhere in the cosmos and rent the worlds in the days before the creation of man, when the elder gods walked the spaces, the race of Marduk. As he is known to the Chaldeans and of Enki our master, the Lord of magicians, know then that I have trod all the zones of the gods, and also the places of the Azonai, and have descended unto the foul places of death and eternal thirst, which may be reached through the gate of Ganzir, which was built in in the days before Babylon was. Know too that I have spoken with all manner of spirit and daemon, whose names are no longer known in the societies of man, or were never known. And the seals of some of these are written herein, yet others I must take with me when I leave you. Anu, have mercy on my soul. I have seen the unknown lands that no map has ever charted. I have lived in the deserts and the wastelands, and spoken with demons and the souls of slaughtered men, and of women who have died in childbirth, victims of the she-fiend Lamashta. I have travelled beneath the seas, in search of the palace of our master, and found the stone monuments of vanquished civilizations, and deciphered the writings of some of these, while still others remain mysteries to any man who lives. And these civilizations were destroyed because of the knowledge contained in this book. I have travelled among the stars, and trembled before the gods. I have at last found the formulae by which I passed the gate Azir, and passed into the forbidden realms of the foul Ijiji. I have raised demons and the dead. I have summoned the ghosts of my ancestors to real and visible appearance on the tops of temples built to reach the stars, and built to touch the nethermost cavities of Hades. I have wrestled with the black magician, Azathoth, in vain, and fled to the earth by calling upon Inanna and her brother Marduk, lord of the double-headed axe. I have raised armies against the lands of the east. By summoning the hordes of fiends I have made subject unto me, and so doing found Enga, the god of the heathens, who breathes flame and roars like 1,000 thunders. I have found fear. I have found the gate that leads to the outside, by which the ancient ones, who ever seek entrance to our world, keep eternal watch. I have smelled the vapors of that ancient one, Queen of the Outside, whose name is written in the terrible Magan text, the testament of some dead civilization whose priests, seeking power, swung open the dread, evil gate for an hour past the time, and were consumed. I came to possess this knowledge through circumstances quite peculiar, while still the unlettered son of a shepherd in what is called Mesopotamia by the Greeks. When I was only a youth, traveling alone in the mountains to the east, called Masshu by the people who live there, I came upon a grey rock carved with 3 strange symbols. It stood as high as a man, and as wide around as a bull. It was firmly in the ground, and I could not move it. Thinking no more of the carvings, save that they might be the work of a king to mark some ancient victory over an enemy, I built a fire at its foot to protect me from the wolves that wander in those regions, and went to sleep. For it was night, and I was far from my village, being Bet Darabia. Being about 3 hours from dawn, in the 19th of Shabbatu, I was awakened by the howl of a dog, perhaps of a wolf, uncommonly loud and close at hand. The fire had died to its embers, and these red, glowing coals cast a faint, dancing shadow across the stone monument with the 3 carvings. I began to make haste to build another fire when, at once, the grey rock began to rise slowly into the air, as though it were a dove. I could not move or speak for the fear that seized upon my spine and wrapped cold fingers around my skull. The Dick of Azubelia was no stranger to me than this sight, though the former seemed to melt into my hands. Presently I heard a voice, softly, some distance away, and a more practical fear, that of the possibility of robbers, took hold of me, and I rolled behind some weeds, trembling. Another voice joined the first, and soon several men in the black robes of thieves came together over the place where I was, surrounding the floating rock, of which they did not exhibit the least fright. I could see clearly now that the 3 carvings on the stone monument were glowing a flame-red color, as though the rock were on fire. The figures were murmuring together in prayer or invocation, of which only a few words could be heard, and these in some unknown tongue, though, Anu, have mercy on my soul, these rituals are not unknown to me any longer. The figures, whose faces I could not see or recognize, began to make wild passes in the air with knives that glinted cold and sharp in the mountain night. From beneath the floating rock, out of the very ground where it had sat, came rising the tail of a serpent. This serpent was surely larger than any I had ever seen. The thinnest section thereof was fully that of the arms of 2 men, and as it rose from the earth it was followed by another, although the end of the first was not seen, as it seemed to reach down into the very pit itself. These were followed by still more, and the ground began to tremble under the pressure of so many of these enormous arms. The chanting of the priests, for I knew them now to be the servants of some hidden power, became much louder and very nearly hysterical. Ia, Ia, Ziazag. Ia, Ia, Ziaskak. Ia, Ia, Cthulhuzikur. Ia. The ground where I was hiding became wet with some substance, being slightly downhill from the scene I was witnessing. I touched the wetness and found it to be blood. In horror, I screamed and gave my presence away to the priests. They turned toward me, and I saw a loathing that they had cut their chests with the daggers they had used to raise the stone. For some mystical purpose, I could not then divine, although I know now that blood is the very food of these spirits, which is why the field after the battles of war glows with an unnatural light. The manifestations of the spirits feeding thereon. May Anu protect us all. My scream had the effect of casting their ritual into chaos and disorder. I raced through the mountain path by which I had come, and the priests came running after me, although some seemed to stay behind, perhaps to finish the rites. However, as I ran wildly down the slopes in the cold night, my heart pounding in my chest and my head growing hot, the sound of splitting rocks and thunder came from behind me and shook the very ground I ran upon. In fright and in haste, I fell to the earth. Rising, I turned to face whatever attacker had come nearest me, though I was unarmed. To my surprise, what I saw was no priest of ancient horror, no necromancer of that forbidden art, but black robes fallen upon the grass and weeds, with no seeming presence of life or bodies beneath them. I walked cautiously to the first and, picking up a long twig, lifted the robe from the tangle of weeds and thorns. All that remained of the priest was a pool of slime, like green oil, and the smell of a body lain long to rot in the sun. Such a stench nearly overpowered me, but I was resolute to find the others, to see if the same fortune had also befallen them. Walking back up the slope that I had so fearfully run down only moments ago, I came across yet another of the dark priests, in identical condition to the first. I kept walking, passing more of the robes as I went, not venturing to overturn them any longer. Then I finally came upon the grey stone monument that had risen unnaturally into the air at the command of the priests. It was now upon the ground once more, but the carvings still glowed with supernatural light. The serpents, or what I had then thought of as serpents, had disappeared, but in the dead embers of the fire, now cold and black, was a shining metal plate. I picked it up and saw that it was also carved, like the stone, but very intricately, after a fashion I could not understand. It did not bear the same markings as the stone, but I had the feeling I could almost read the characters, but could not, as though I once knew the tongue but had since long forgotten. My head began to ache, as though a devil was pounding my skull, when a shaft of moonlight struck the metal amulet, for I know now what it was. And a voice entered into my head and told me the secrets of the scene I had witnessed in one word: Cthulhu. In that moment, as though whispered fiercely into my ear, I understood. These are the signs carved upon the grey stone, which was the gate to the outside, and this is the amulet that I held in my hand, and hold to this very day around my neck as I write these words. Of the three carved symbols, the first is the sign of our race from beyond the stars, and is called Ara in the tongue of the scribe who taught it to me, an emissary of the Elder Ones. In the tongue of the eldest city of Babylon it was It is the sigil of the covenant of the elder gods, and when they see it, they who gave it to us, they will not forget us. They have sworn, Spirit of the skies, remember. The second is the elder sign, and is the key whereby the powers of the elder gods may be summoned when used with the proper words and shapes. It has a name, and is called Aga. The third sign is the sigil of the Watcher. It is called Bandar. The Watcher is a race sent by the Elder Ones. It keeps vigil while one sleeps, provided the appropriate ritual and sacrifice have been performed, else, if called, it will turn upon you. These seals, to be effective, must be graven on stone and set in the ground, or set upon the altar of offerings, or carried to the rock of invocations, or engraved on the metal of one's god or goddess, and hung about the neck, but hidden from the view of the profane. Of the three, the Ara, the Aga may be used separately, that is to say, singly and alone. The Bandar, however, must never be used alone, but with one or both of the others, for the Watcher must needs be reminded of the covenant it has sworn with the elder gods and our race. Else it will turn upon thee, and slay thee, and ravage thy town, until succor is to be had from the elder gods, by the tears of thy people, and the wailing of thy women. Kakamu. The metal amulet that I retrieved from the ashes of the fire, and which caught the light of the moon, is a potent seal against whatever may come in the gate from the outside, for, seeing it, They will retreat from thee, save only if it catches the light of the moon upon its surface, for in the dark days of the moon or in cloud. There can be little protection against the fiends from the ancient lands should they break the barrier, or be let in by their servants upon the face of the earth. In such a case, no recourse is to be had until the light of the moon shines upon the earth, for the moon is the eldest among the Zonai, and is the starry symbol of our pact. Nana, father of the gods, remember. Wherefore, the amulet must be engraved upon pure silver in the full light of the moon, that the moon shine upon it at its working, and the essence of the moon incantations must be performed, and the prescribed rituals as given forth in this book. And the amulet must never be exposed to the light of the sun, for Shamash, called Udu, in his jealousy, will rob the seal of its power. In such a case, it must be bathed in water of camphor, and the incantations and ritual performed once again. But verily, it were better to engrave another. These secrets I give to thee at the pain of my life, never to be revealed to the profane, or the banished, or the worshippers of the ancient serpent, but to keep within thine own heart, always silent upon these things. Peace be to thee. Henceforth, from that fateful night in the mountains of Masshu, I wandered about the countryside in search of the key to the secret knowledge that had been given me. And it was a painful and lonely journey, during which time I took no wife, called no house or village my home, and dwelt in various countries, often in caves or in the deserts, learning several tongues as a traveller might learn them, to bargain with the tradespeople and learn of their news and customs. But my bargaining was with the powers that reside in each of these countries, and soon I came to understand many things which before I had no knowledge, except perhaps in dreams. The friends of my youth deserted me, and I them. When I was 7 years gone from my family, I learned that they had all died of their own hand. For reasons no one was able to tell me, their flocks had been slain as the victims of some strange epidemic. I wandered as a beggar, being fed from town to town as the local people saw fit, often being stoned instead and threatened with imprisonment. On occasion, I was able to convince some learned man that I was a sincere scholar, and was thereby permitted to read the ancient records in which the details of necromancy, sorcery, magic, and alchemy are given. I learned of the spells that cause men illness, the plague, blindness, insanity, and even death. I learned of the various classes of demons and evil gods that exist, and of the old legends concerning the ancient ones. I was thus able to arm myself against also the she-devil Lamashta, who is called the sword that splits the skull, the sight of whom causeth horror and dismay, and some say death of a most uncommon nature. In time, I learned of the names and properties of all the demons, devils, fiends, and monsters listed herein, in this book of the Black Earth. I learned of the powers of the astral gods, and how to summon their aid in times of need. I learned too of the frightful beings who dwell beyond the astral spirits, who guard the entrance to the temple of the lost, of the Ancient of Days, the Ancient of the Ancient Ones, whose name I cannot write here. In my solitary ceremonies in the hills, worshipping with fire and sword, with water and dagger, and with the assistance of a strange grass that grows wild in certain parts of Masshu, and with which I had unwittingly built my fire before the rock, that grass that gives the mind great power to travel tremendous distances into the heavens, as also into the hells. I received the formulae for the amulets and talismans which follow, which provide the priest with safe passage among the spheres wherein he may travel in search of the wisdom. But now, after 1001 moons of the journey, the Maskim nip at my heels, the Rabishu pull at my hair, Lamashta opens her dread jaws, Azar-Thoth gloats blindly at his throne. Cthulhu raises his head and stares up through the veils of Sunkun Varlorni, up through the abyss, and fixes his stare upon me, wherefore I must with haste write this indeed. It appears as though I have failed in some regard as to the order of the rites, or to the formulae, or to the sacrifices, For now it appears as if the entire host of Ereshkigal lies waiting, dreaming, drooling for my departure. I pray the gods that I am saved, and not perish, as did the priest, Abdul ben Martu, in Jerusalem. The gods remember and have mercy upon him. My fate is no longer writ in the stars, for I have broken the Chaldean covenant by seeking power over the Zonai. I have set foot on the moon, and the moon no longer has power over me. The lines of my life have been obliterated by my wanderings in the waste, over the letters writ in the heavens by the gods. And even now I can hear the wolves howling in the mountains as they did that fateful night, and they are calling my name, and the names of others. I fear for my flesh, but I fear for my spirit more. Remember, always, in every empty moment, to call upon the gods not to forget thee, for they are forgetful and very far away. Light thy fires high in the hills and on the tops of temples and pyramids, that they may see and remember. Remember always to copy each of the formulae as I have put it down, and not to change it by one line or dot, not so much as a hair's breadth, lest it be rendered valueless, or worse. A broken star is the gate of Ganzir, the gate of death, the gate of the shadows and the shells. Recite the incantations as they are written here, in the manner prescribed. Prepare the rituals without erring, and in the proper places and times render the sacrifices. May the gods be ever merciful unto thee. May thou escape the jaws of the Maskim, and vanquish the power of the Ancient Ones. And the gods grant thee death before the Ancient Ones rule the earth once more. Kakamu, Selah. Nipor, Eridu Kula, Kesh Lagash, Shurupal Selah. Day of living, rising sun. Day of plenty, gracious sun. Day of perfect, grand delight. Day of fortune, brilliant night. O shining day, O laughing day, O day of life and love and luck. 7 oldest, wisest ones, 7 sacred learned ones, be my guardians, polished swords. Be my watchful, patient lords. Protect me from the Rabishu, O shining, splendorous Afkolhu. What god have I offended? What goddess? What sacrifice have I failed to make? What unknown evil have I committed, that my going out should be thus accompanied by the fearful howlings of 100 wolves? May the heart of my God return to its place. May the heart of my goddess return to its place. May the god I do not know be quieted toward me. May the goddess I do not know be quieted toward me. May the heart of the unknown god return to its place for me. May the heart of the unknown goddess return to its place for me. I have traveled on the spheres, and the spheres do not protect me. I have descended into the abyss, and the abyss does not protect me. I have walked to the tops of mountains, and the mountains do not protect me. I have walked the seas, and the seas do not protect me. The lords of the wind rush about me and are angered. The lords of the earth crawl about my feet and are angered. The spirits have forgotten me. My time is shortened, and I must complete as much as I can before I am taken away by the voice that ever calls. The moon's days are numbered upon the earth, and the sun's, and I know not the meaning of these omens, but that they are. And the oracles are dried up, and the stars spin in their places, and the heavens look to be uncontrolled, with no order, and the spheres are crooked and wandering. And the sign of Zedak is floating above my writing table, but I cannot read the runes any longer, for that sight is failing me. Is it always in this fashion? And the sign is failing me. Is it always in this fashion? and the sign of Hastar rises up behind me, and of that I know the meaning, but may not write, for I received the message elsewhere. I can hardly speak to recognize my own voice. The abyss yawns wide before me. A gate has been broken. Know that the 7 spheres must be entered in their times and in their seasons, one at a time, and never the one before the other. Know that the 4 beasts of the spaces claim the blood of the initiate, each in their own time and season. Know that Tiamat seeks ever to rise to the stars, and when the upper is united to the lower, then a new age will come of earth, and the serpent shall be made whole, and the waters will be as one. When on high, the heavens had not been named. Remember to protect the livestock of the village and thy family, the elder sign and the sign of the race, but the watcher too, if they be slow. And no sacrifices are to be made in that time, for the blood will be split for them that have come in, and will call them. Remember to keep to the low ground, and not the high, for the ancient ones swing easily to the tops of the temples and the mountains, whereby they may survey what they had lost the last time. And sacrifices made on the tops of those temples are lost to them. Remember thy life is in running water, and not in still water, for the latter is the breeding place of the Lilitu, and her creatures are the offspring of them, and do worship at their shrines, the places of which are unknown to thee. But where thou seest a standing stone, there they will be, for such is their altar. Remember to carve the signs exactly as I have told thee, changing not one mark, lest the amulet prove a curse against thee that wear it. Know that salt absorbs the evil effluvia of the larvae, and is useful to cleanse the tools with. Do not speak first to the demon, but let him speak first to thee. And if he speaks, charge him to speak clearly, in a soft and pleasing voice, and in thy tongue, for it will otherwise surely confuse thee and deafen thee with its roar. And charge it to keep its stench, that it may not make thee faint. Remember not to make the sacrifice either too large or too small, for if it is too small, the demon will not come, or, if coming, will be angered with thee so that it will not speak, even when charged, for that is the covenant. And if it be too large, it will grow too large and too fast, and will become difficult to control. And one such demon was raised by that priest of Jerusalem, Abdul ben Martu, and was fed extensively on the sheep of the flocks of Palestine, whereupon it grew to frightening proportion, and eventually devoured him. But that was madness, for Ben Martu worshipped the old ones, which is unlawful, as it is written. Remember that the essences of the ancient ones are in all things, but that the essences of the elder gods are in all things that live, and this will prove of value to thee when the time comes. Remember the Ara, especially when dealing with them of fire, for they respect it and no other. Remember to keep the moon pure. Beware of the cults of death, and these are the cult of the dog, the cult of the dragon, and the cult of the goat. For they are worshippers of the ancient ones, and forever try to let them in, for they have a formula of which it is unlawful to speak. And these cults are not strong, save at their seasons, when the heavens open up to them and unto their race. And there shall forever be war between us and the race of Draconis, for the race of Draconis was ever powerful in ancient times, when the first temples were built in Magan, and they drew down much strength from the stars. But now they are as wanderers of the wastelands, and dwell in caves and in deserts, and in all lonely places where they have set up stones. And these I have seen in my journeys through those areas where the ancient cults once flourished, and where now there is only sadness and desolation. And I have seen them in their rites, and the awful things they call forth from the lands beyond time. I have seen the signs carved upon their stones, their altars. I have seen the sign of Pazuzu and Zalid, and those of Hastur and Azak Thoth, and similarly those of Ishnigarab and the awful offspring of the goat, and the terrible musics of their race. I have seen the blood split upon the stone. I have seen that stone struck with a sword, and have seen the stone raise up and the serpent crawl forth. And this power is surely damned, but where does Marduk tarry? And what of Shamash? The sleeping gods truly sleep. And what crime have I committed? What unknown god have I transgressed? What forbidden thing have I eaten? What forbidden thing have I drunk? My suffering, it is 7 times 7. O gods, do not cast thy servant down. Remember the scorpion man who dwells in the mountains. He was of old created by Tiamat to fight the elder gods, but was permitted to stay below the mountains by them. But he has deceived us once, and may do so again. But call upon him if there be something concerning the outside that you would know, that I have not told thee. And his sign is simple, and it is thus, and merely face the place where he is, and he will come and speak. But do not do this at dawn, for then the sun rises, and the scorpion has no power, not from the dawn till the dusk, during which time he is forced back beneath the earth, for that is the letter of the covenant concerning him, for it is written, he shall not raise his head above the sun. And again, his is the dark times. And again he knows of the gate, but not the gate, and the scorpion man has another of his race, female, that dwells with him there, but of her it is not lawful to speak. And she must be banished with the exorcisms should she appear to thee, for her touch is death. And of the cult of the dragon, what more can I say to thee? They worship when that star is highest in the heavens, and is of the sphere of the Igigi, as are the stars of the dog and the goat. And their worshippers have always been with us, though they are not of our same race, but of the race of their stars, of the ancient ones. And they keep not to our laws, but murder quickly, and without thought, and their blood covers them. They have summoned the spirits of war and plague openly upon our race, and have caused great numbers of our people and our animals die, after a most unnatural fashion. And they are unfeeling towards pain, and fear not the sword or the flame, for they are the authors of all pain. They are the very creatures of darkness and sorrow, yet they sorrow not. Remember the smell, they can be told by their smell. And their many unnatural sciences and arts, which cause wondrous things to happen, but which are unlawful to our people. And who is their master? Of this I do not know, but I have heard them calling Enki, which is surely a blasphemy, for Enki is of our race as it is writ in the text of Magan. But perhaps they called another, whose name I do not know. But surely it was not Enki, and I've heard them calling all the names of the ancient ones proudly at their rites. And I have seen the blood split upon the ground, and the mad dancing and the terrible cries, as they yelled upon their gods to appear and aid them in their mysteries. And I have seen them turn the very moon's rays into liquid, the which they poured upon their stones for a purpose I could not divine. And I have seen them turn into many strange kinds of beast, as they gathered in their appointed places, the temples of offal, whereupon horns grew from heads that had not horns, and teeth from mouths that had not such teeth. And hands become as the talons of eagles, or the claws of dogs that roam the desert areas, mad and howling, like unto those who even now call my name outside this room. I cry laments, but no one hears me. I am overwhelmed with horror. I cannot see. Gods, do not cast thy servant down. Remember the sword of the watcher. Do not touch it until you want it to depart, for it will depart at a touch, and leave thee unprotected for the remainder of the rite. And although a circle is a boundary which none can cross, thou wilt find thyself unprepared to meet the incredible sights that will greet thee outside. Remember also the sacrifices to the watcher. They must be regular, for the watcher is of a different race and cares not for thy life, save that he obey thy commands when the sacrifices have been met. And forgetting the elder sign will surely cause thee much grief. And I have seen a race of man that worships a giant cow, and they come from somewhere east, beyond the mountains. And they are surely worshippers of an ancient one, but of its name I am not certain, and do not write it down, for it is useless to thee anyway. And in their rites they become as cows, and it is disgusting to see. But they are evil, and so I warn thee. And I have seen rites that can kill a man at a great distance, and rites that can cause sickness to a man, wherever he lives, by the use of a simple charm, which must be spoken in its tongue and in no other. Or so it is said. And this charm is as follows. Aza galra sagbi, ma unati, namta galra zibi, ma unati, utuksul gubi, ma unati, ala shul gabi, ma unati, gidim shul ibi, ma unati, gala shul kadbi, ma unati, dingir sul girbi, ma unati, I minabiene, tashbiaba, abba and dibiesh. And this they would chant over a doll of wax, as it was burning in their wicked cauldrons. And in these things they took great delight, and still do where they are to be found at their shrines of loathsomeness. And I have seen the lands of farmers ravaged by their evil spells, scorched black by flame and burning embers that descend from the sky. And that is the sign that they have been there, where the earth is black and charred, and where nothing grows. And when fire comes from the heavens, there will surely be panic among the people, and the priest must calm them and take this book, of which he must make a copy in his own, and read the exorcisms therein, that his people may not be harmed. For a sword will appear in the sky at those times, a signal to the ancient ones that one of theirs has escaped and entered into this world, and it shall be an omen to thee that such a spirit is abroad in the land and must be found, and thou mayest send thy watcher to the search, and it will be great destruction of cities, and fire will rain from the spheres, until the elder gods see your plight, and will quell the uprising of the ancient ones with powerful charms. But many will be lost to the outside at that time. Watch well the stars, for when comets are to be seen in the neighborhood of Capricornus, his cults will rejoice, and the spells will increase from their quarter. And when comets are to be seen in Draconis, there is a great danger, for the cults of the dragon do rise up at that time, and make many sacrifices, not only of animals, but of men. And when comets are to be seen in the neighborhood of the star Sirius, then there will be great difficulty in the house of kings, and brother will rise up against brother, and there shall be war and famine. And in these things the worshippers of the dog will rejoice, and reap the spoils of these conflicts, and will grow fat. If thou happenest upon such a cult in the midst of their rituals, do but hide well so that they do not see thee, else they will surely kill thee and make of thee a sacrifice to their gods. And thy spirit will be in grave danger, and the howling of the wolves will be for thee and the spirit which escapes from thee. This, if thou be lucky to die quickly, for these cults rejoice in the slow spilling of blood, whereby they derive much power and strength in their ceremonies. Watch well, however, all that they do and all that they say, and write it down in a book that no one will see, as I have done. For it will serve thee well at some future time, when thou wilt recognize them by their words or by their actions. And thou mayest procure amulets against them, by which their spells are rendered useless and dull, by burning the name of their gods upon parchment or silk in a cauldron of thine own devising. And thy watcher will carry the burnt spell to their altar and deposit it thereupon, and they will be much afraid and cease their workings for a while. And their stones will crack, and their gods be sorely angry with their servants. Write the book, thou keepest well and clearly. And when it is time for thee to go out, as it is my time now, it will pass into the hands of those who may have the best use of it, and who are faithful servants of the elder gods, and wilt swear eternal warfare against the rebellious demons who would destroy the civilizations of man. And if thou knowest the names of they who would harm thee, write them upon figures of wax, made in their image. upon which you will make the curse and melt them in the cauldron you have set up within the mantle of protection. And the watcher will carry the curse to them for whom it was uttered, and they will die. And if thou dost not know their names nor their persons, save that they seek to harm thee, make a doll of wax like a man, with his limbs but with no face. And upon the face of the doll write the word Kashapti. Hold the doll over the flaming cauldron while saying fiercely over it, Ati Manu, Kashaptu Shatuyub, Ta'eni. And then drop the doll into the flame. From the smoke that rises from this action, you will see the name of the sorcerer or sorceress written within it, and then you will be able to send the watcher to bring the curse, and that person will die. Or thou mayest call upon Ishtar to protect thee from the spells of sorcery, and for this the mantle must be prepared as always, and a figure of Ishtar be upon the altar, and incantations made to summon her assistance, like the following incantation that is ancient from the priests of Ur. Who art thou, O witch, that seekest me? Thou hast taken the road. Thou hast come after me. Thou hast sought me continually for my destruction. Thou hast continually plotted an evil thing against me. Thou hast encompassed me. Thou hast sought me out. Thou hast gone forth and followed my steps. But I, by the command of the Queen Ishtar, am clothed in terror, am armed in fiercesomeness, am arrayed with might and the sword. I make thee tremble. I make thee run afraid. I drive thee out. I spy thee out. I cause thy name to be known among men. I cause thy house to be seen among men. I cause thy spells to be heard among men. I cause thy evil perfumes to be smelt among men. I unclothe thy wickedness and evil, and bring your sorceries to naught. It is not I, but Nanakanisura, mistress of witches, and the Queen of Heaven Ishtar who command thee. And if these worshippers and sorcerers still come at thee, as it is possible, for their power comes from the stars, and who knows the ways of the stars, thou must call upon the Queen of Mysteries Nindinuga, who wilt surely save thee. And thou must make incantations with her title, which is Nindinuga Nimshim Shagal Enlilara. And it is enough merely to shout that name aloud 7 times, and she will come to thine aid. And remember that thou purify thy temple with the branches of cypress and of pine, and no evil spirit which haunteth buildings will cause habitation to be set up therein, and no larvae will breed, as they do in many unclean places. The larvae are enormous, twice as large as a man, but do breed on his excretions, and even, it is said, upon his breath, and grow to terrible height. And do not leave him until the priest or some magician cut him off with the copper dagger, saying the name of Ishtar 7 times, aloud in a sharp voice. The night has now grown silent. The howling of the wolves has grown quiet, and can scarce be heard. Perhaps it was some other that they sought. Yet, can I tell in my bones that this is not so? For the Hastar sign has not left its station behind me, and has grown larger, casting a shadow over these pages as I write. I have summoned my watcher, but it is troubled by some things and does not respond to me well, as though afflicted with some disease and dazed. My books have lost light, and settle upon their shelves like animals fallen asleep, or dead. I am sickened by what voices I hear now, as though the voices of my family left behind me so many years ago, that it is impossible to conceive that they are about. Did I not understand of their untimely, unnatural death? Can the demons who wait without take on so viciously the human voices of my parents, my brother, my sister? Avaunt thee! That this book were an amulet, a seal of protection, that my ink were the ink of gods and not of men. But I must write hastily, And if thou cannot read nor understand this writing, perhaps it is sign enough for thee of the strength and power of the demons that be in these times and in these places, and is surely a warning to thee to have a care, and not to invoke carelessly, but cautiously, and not under any circumstances seek carelessly to open that gate to the outside. For thou can never know the seasons of times of the ancient ones, even though thou can tell their seasons upon the earth by the rules I have already instructed thee to compute. For their times and seasons outside run uneven and strange to our minds, for are they not the computers of all time? Did they not set time in its place? It were not enough that the elder gods, have mercy on thy servant, set the wanderers to mark their spaces, for such spaces as existed were the work of the ancient ones. Were no sun to shine, were Shamash never born, would not the years pass by as quickly? Seek ever to keep the outside gate closed and sealed by the instructions I have given thee, by the seals and the names herein. Seek ever to hold back the powers of the cults of the ancient worship, that they might not grow strong on their blood and on their sacrifice. By their wounds shall ye know them, and by their smell, for they are not born as men, but in some other fashion, by some corruption of seed or spirit that has given them other properties than those we are familiar with. And they like the dark places best, for their god is a worm. Iya, Shaduya. Iya, Bara. Iya, Kanpa. Iya, Kanpa. Ishnigarab. Iya, Engini. Iya. The stars grow dim in their places, and the moon pales before me, as though a veil were blown across its flame. Dog-faced demons approach the circumference of my sanctuary. Strange lines appear carved on my door and walls, and the light from the windows grows increasingly dim. A wind has risen. The dark waters stir. This is the book of the servant of the gods. End of the testimony of the mad Arab.